What are the 3 closing costs that buyers and sellers can negotiate to get their offer accepted? Coming up. Hi, this is Kai with the Kai Wong team, helping you better understand everything you need to know about New York City real estate. Today I have with me Tim Allomong from Allomong & Associates. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Kai. Thank you.
How are you? I'm good. Thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a real estate attorney here in New York City. My practice involves representing purchasers, sellers of real estate here. That includes condos, co-ops, single and multifamily homes. We also do commercial real estate and commercial leasing.
One of the things in a real estate transaction is always getting an accepted offer, whether it's from the buyer side or seller side. So today I wanted to talk to you about what are some things that the buyer or seller can use to get their offer accepted.
Whenever you're purchasing or selling, new development or new construction, especially condos here in New York, the purchaser and the developer go back and forth on credits. The first thing to understand always is that as a purchaser of new development, you have additional closing costs. Sometimes you're going to be paying the transfer taxes that are due to the city and the state. That's ordinarily paid by a seller, but if it's new construction and development, the purchaser picks it up oftentimes. And then another closing cost is the purchaser's mansion tax. A mansion tax is anything over $1 million. Recently enacted New York tax law has expanded that mansion tax to New York City and other large metropolitan places in New York. The purchaser's transfer tax increases at the $2 million range to 1.25%, and it escalates above that once you go into higher tier purchase prices. The third closing cost that could be negotiated between the sponsor and the purchaser is the purchaser's mortgage tax.
Okay.
The purchaser may reduce his or her mortgage tax if they can get the seller to agree to a purchase SEMA. So a purchase SEMA is basically whenever the seller assigns or modifies their existing mortgage to the purchaser at the table. What it helps with is the purchaser will pay only the mortgage tax on the difference between the seller's outstanding principal balance and the new money.
Got it. Yeah, that's definitely opportunity there to negotiate, which a lot of first-time home buyers don't know, and even honestly some brokers don't know. When do you think that you should have the conversation to find this out?
I think purchasers should discuss these 3 closing costs with their brokers when they're out making offers. And also they should be communicating with their real estate attorney while they're making these offers as well. Because your real estate attorney can give you a closing statement to tell you how much all of these taxes will be. Your mortgage tax, your mansion tax, and he can tell you how much of a credit you're gonna need to get your desired property.
Yeah, I think that's very important because then at least they have a better sense of what they're walking away with if you're selling the home, or in the sense of buying a home, how much you need to bring to the closing table.
And another thing is that it always gives you an advantage as a purchaser to work with the seller on these types of credits. Your offers will be stronger.
Yes.
They'll be healthier, and it'll also show that you've done your homework.
Definitely, especially with the purchase SEMA, like you mentioned in another video, is that the benefit can be split between the buyer and the seller. So in a way that can kind of strengthen your offer and separate you, if you're buying, from all the other offers out there. So for example, if you're matching price to price with another offer, there's a higher chance that the seller will accept your offer.
Right. I think what's important to understand is when you bring the concept of a purchase SEMA to a seller, you're giving them more money at the table.
Yes.
So that's called a splitter agreement. It's important to understand that the purchaser would be entitled to the reduced mortgage tax, and the seller would be entitled to the reduced New York State transfer tax whenever you're doing a purchase SEMA. Only if you have a splitter agreement between the seller and the buyer are they going to agree to split the net savings. You know, so the buyer has more savings in this type of transaction than the seller will. In order to entice the seller to do it, they have to say, instead of us taking all of these net savings, we'll instead split it with you 50-50, so we're each getting the benefit of a bargain. You want to have this conversation when you're negotiating the contract at the very latest. Before that, you want to choose an attorney who has done purchase SEMAs in the past and can easily explain to you what it means and how the net savings that from the purchaser would play into what a seller's reduced tax would be and how a benefit would be available to the sponsor in working with you as a particular purchaser.
Yeah, I realized like not all attorneys are created equal. Not everyone's familiar with what a purchase SEMA is and how it works. So it's very important to have the conversation early on. So Tim, thanks for all this information. So let's recap. What did we learn today?
Sure. So you as a buyer or a seller in any real estate transaction in New York have 3 closing costs that can help you negotiate. One of them being the mansion tax as amended. The second one being the New York State transfer tax. And the third one is this concept of the purchase SEMA and how that can affect the purchaser's mortgage tax.
Thank you so much for that information. I think that's very helpful, especially for the audience that are thinking of ways to get their offers accepted, right? Especially for the first-time buyers, they might have had a few rejections already. So this is very helpful, and also for the seller to learn more ways for them to keep more money in their pocket. So thank you so much for being here today.
Sure, thanks for having me. Bye.
And thank you for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. On this channel, we share with you buying and selling tips, market updates, and neighborhood guides. If you have any questions from this video, let us know in the comments below. We'll be happy to answer them in a future video. Thank you again. Bye.